Hello, 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 everyone, and welcome to another edition of Ask Dr. Dansinger. Diabetes reversal expert Dr. Michael Dansinger is donating his time to answer your questions about a variety of different topics each week. He practices in Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Florida, and now we just heard that his practice for virtual visits to help you reverse your type 2 diabetes is available in Minnesota
Minnesota and Virginia.
and Virginia. Exactly. So excited. Congratulations on getting approved to practice in those states as well. So make sure you do reach out to Dr. Danzinger at which website do you want him? Do you want michaeldanzinger.com or diabetes?
DiabetesReversalPartners.com.
Exactly. Perfect. DiabetesReversalPartners.com. Today, we are going to be focusing on high cholesterol in your food, particularly with eggs. There is so much debate out there. Do eggs raise your cholesterol? Do they not raise your cholesterol? Should you eat them? Should you not? And then we're going to trickle into a grander conversation about overall poultry and what is healthier to eat. Is it chicken? Is it game hen? Is it duck? Is it white meat or dark meat? And how do you choose the best chicken for your diet? Okay. And with that, Dr. Danziger, welcome. And I think we need to start with that elephant in the room, which is eggs and high cholesterol.
Great topic today, Kim. Thanks for the opportunity to answer questions and have this interesting conversation. So, eggs. Most people love eggs. Americans eat 275 eggs per year on average. Some people probably eat double that. Some people don't like eggs. But there's cholesterol in the yolk and there's saturated fat in the yolk. So nutrition experts have been trying to answer questions about eggs and heart disease risk for decades. And the consensus is, oh, they're not so bad, but we can't just eat them to our heart's desire. So the amount of cholesterol in an egg is high. It's close to 200 milligrams or 170 milligrams of cholesterol. And so if you ate two or three eggs, that's a pretty high amount of cholesterol. But there's a big difference between the amount of cholesterol in the food versus the cholesterol in the blood. Cholesterol in the blood, we need cholesterol in our blood, but not too much. And many people have too much cholesterol in their blood, which then, makes cholesterol deposits in the artery and clogs up the heart. And we're all concerned about vascular disease, including peripheral vascular disease. So how big of a problem is eggs when we're already fighting against vascular disease? So the most people can eat half a dozen eggs without raising their risk, half a dozen eggs per week without raising their risk of accelerating their heart disease risk. But it turns out some people are overabsorbers of dietary cholesterol. About 25% of people are overabsorbers of dietary cholesterol. I happen to be one. And so if I ate a lot of eggs, my blood cholesterol levels would go up because I'm in the minority of people. There are actually blood tests that can be done to determine whether you are a cholesterol overabsorber or not, and it's genetically determined. So I'm one of the unlucky ones. So I can't just eat all the eggs I want without raising my blood levels of cholesterol. So for the general population, I would say half a dozen. If you're very careful and just eating the egg whites, then there's not a problem with that. So a good rule of thumb, in my opinion, is to eat about half as many yolks as whites. Another reason is that about 80% of the calories are in the yolk. So you can eat like 4 egg whites for the same calories as one whole egg. So I'll pause
It's
there.
interesting that my trainer always used to say to have 2 egg whites and one yolk, 1 egg with the yolk. And she said then that would be okay. And she told me I could do that 3 times a week to be fairly safe. And my dad is also a high absorber of cholesterol. And it was through your previous organization that with Boston Heart Diagnostics that he was able to get the cholesterol reabsorption test. Is that what you're referencing?
Yes. So I used to be a medical director at a heart health company called Boston Heart Diagnostics, and they do specialized blood testing for heart disease risk factors, including a test called um, the cholesterol balance test, which looks at in people who have high cholesterol whether they're over absorbing from their diet or over producing cholesterol from their liver. And so that test is available to healthcare providers who want to order from Boston Heart.
It's interesting with my dad, he was a cholesterol reabsorber, of course. And the dietitian said that, and this might be too graphic for maybe this particular discussion, but it's still the truth. She actually told him that he needed to have additional bowel movements each day. And for men, 2 to 3, and for women, 1 to 2, in order to help make sure that that cholesterol is not reabsorbing as fast. It was just from the one dietitian. I never asked anyone else. So you could be the determinant whether that is actually true or false. Maybe just her interpretation. I don't know. But since you're right here, I want to ask you.
So, more dietary fiber helps keep the bowels moving along, and that's how the body gets rid of dietary cholesterol in by through bowel movements and through bile, which the liver makes bile, which has cholesterol, which goes into the intestinal tract, and then we excrete it in the bowel movements. So
Mhm.
I'll also say that the main thing that people eat that raises their LDL cholesterol is saturated fat from meat and dairy. And so eggs do have saturated fat, about 1.5 grams, 1.5 grams of saturated fat per egg. And so it's a it's not a lot. So eggs really don't that if eggs had more saturated fat, that would be the main concern about eggs. So eggs are not terribly high in saturated fat, which is a good thing, but they do have some saturated fat, so you don't want to over another reason why you don't want to overdo it. So
So
um
how do we choose our eggs? I know
yes,
probably always the best eggs are the ones that you can get from that neighbor with their chicken coop. But if
you
you're
want
going to the store, how do you choose them?
Yeah, so if you're concerned about if you're interested in the healthiest eggs you can get, what you want to think about is, well, what are these chickens eating? So what the chicken eats determines how healthy the yolk is. And so there are some chickens out there who have the best scenario where they're raised in a pasture and they can eat what they want. They can eat grasses and bugs and worms and seeds. And so they can eat sort of a natural chicken diet, and that's going to make the healthiest eggs. And so, yes, if you have a neighbor who has chickens that are free to roam, that they'll have healthier eggs. And then there's different versions of that you can find at the grocery store. So you can find pasture raised chickens at the grocery store. You can find eggs that are um, organic. So those chickens have some freedom. There's omega-3 eggs, where the chickens are fed omega-3 healthy fats from flax, for example. And then you've got cage-free eggs. Those chickens, have a little bit of freedom. They don't spend their entire life in a cage. And then there's conventional eggs, which are the least expensive. If you're concerned about chicken welfare, then a lot of people steer clear of those conventional eggs if they are concerned about chickens spending their whole lives in a tiny little box where they can't spread their wings. But those are the most affordable eggs, and many people are concerned with the price of eggs, which have gone up due largely to avian flu, which seems to fluctuate from year to year. So you want eggs that have the least saturated fat and the most omega-3 in them.
And so those are ones that are pasture raised.
Pasture raised is the best.
How about brown or white?
Brown or white. So the nutrition is equal. They're just different species of hens that make different colored eggs. I think years ago, maybe people thought the brown eggs were healthier. And in certain parts of the country, they'll frown on the white eggs. And in other parts of the country, they'll frown on the brown eggs. But either way, it's the same. That's not what makes the difference. It's a great question though.
And does size matter?
Size? No, size doesn't matter.
Because they have the extra large and the large and the and so it's like, well, which one should I get?
That's just consumer preference. Yes.
Okay, so I'm thinking that as we move into our discussion on overall poultry and your choices there, that a lot of what you've said so far would apply true. And starting with chickens, that you want to make sure that you are what they eat, and you want to go after those chickens that are um, feeding naturally, pasteurized, no preservatives, no antibiotics. Am I on the right track here?
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, it's true what I said about eggs, which is dependent on what they feed the chicken, of course affects the healthiness of the chicken meat. So the fat of the chicken, all chickens have fat on them. And in fact, the more tender the chicken, the more plump it probably was, the fatter it was. And uh, the chicken fat is not healthy. The skin of the chicken is not healthy. And so the breast meat is the healthiest part of the chicken. The white meat has the least amount of fat, and then the dark meat, like from the thigh or from the wing, has more fat in it. Many people like the dark meat better because many people would rather eat a chicken thigh than a chicken breast because for many people the dark meat has more flavor and it's juicier, and other people only like the white meat. And if you're concerned about which part of the bird is the healthiest, it's the white meat, which is the breast meat. Chicken breast has about 2% fat, and the dark meat has about 6% fat, and the dark meat then therefore has about 3 times as much fat as the white meat. But in most cases, even the chicken dark meat is healthier than red meat, which is usually not quite as lean. So, um, rotisserie chicken is a very convenient, popular way that people have been eating chicken lately. And the fat from the skin and from the dark meat gets into the white meat. And I think it's a little less healthy than chicken that you can make at home. They also put a lot of salt in the rotisserie chicken, but the convenience, it's an easy sort of white source of white meat chicken for a lot of people. And so rotisserie chicken can be really helpful for a lot of people who are trying to find uh, healthy chicken, healthy protein without too much work. So those are some of my initial thoughts about chicken.
But if you do get the rotisserie, do take off the skin, which is so hard to do because Usually you select your rotisserie chicken based on what they're using on the outside. Is it garlic? Is it some sort of barbecue sauce?
Right.
What it might be. Maybe it's a really good barbecue rub that has that flavoring in it. Maybe it's smoked, but you're saying that it's not the best option. The best option may be to go into your either into the freezer section or into your meat section and choose the chicken breast and chicken breast that's no antibiotics. Does it say pasture raised? I would imagine it would say pasture raised.
I think different. So I don't know the answer to like if it's look on the label of the chicken packaging to see um, if you can learn anything about that. So different brands will have different information, and usually the more expensive chicken is more expensive because the farmers are taking extra care and extra expense to raise the chicken in a way that'll make it healthier. And so there's organic chicken, and you'll pay a little bit more for that. That might be healthier in some cases. But I've pointed to the distinction between the white meat and the dark meat is I think the main way to um, to think about the health of the chicken. You if I am concerned about all the antibiotics that are used to prevent disease in chicken. Many would say use antibiotics for outbreaks among chickens, bacterial outbreaks among chickens rather than as a preventative because we don't want antibiotic resistance. Um, so if you can get poultry meat from chickens that are out to pasture, that's going to be the healthiest. That's going to be the healthiest meat.
Yeah, and Patty, who is watching on Facebook, has the phrase free range chicken. That's what you're looking for.
Yeah, so there's a yes, free range. That's right.
And so the best ways to cook chicken. I assume that fried is probably not your number one choice.
The worst is like
Oh, so good.
so fast food deep fried chicken is the opposite of what we want. And what
Even
you
if it's in beef tallow? Come on, throw
so
me a bone here.
no, what you don't want for healthy chicken is thickly battered deep fried or southern fried chicken or Kentucky fried chicken. What you want is chicken breast that is baked or grilled or even pan sauteed. You can cook it up in a little olive oil, high quality olive oil, and now we're talking. And you don't want your chicken breast to get dried out. So if you're if you put it on the grill, right, it's very easy to over dry the chicken. So you got to be careful and pull it off the grill before it gets over dried. You don't want to over bake it. If you marinate the chicken or buy marinated chicken breast, that um, will usually stay really nice and moist and tasty. And a lot of people will make extra chicken breasts so that they have it for the next day, or you can even freeze cooked chicken breast and then just pull it out of the freezer when you're ready for it and put it on a salad or have it as a main course with some healthy side dishes.
Yeah, one thing that I was taught is to actually stuff the chicken breast. And if you stuff the chicken breast, actually, and you add in, I'll usually, squeeze a little orange in there, put a little orange slice, add in some spinach, which adds moisture. Sometimes some artichoke hearts I'll throw in there. And I'm not a big fan of dairy. Actually, I'm anaphylactic to dairy, but I'll use a little bit of Parmesan in there. But some people will use just a tiny bit of mozzarella. I'm curious your thoughts on something like that. Getting a little creative.
Yeah, you want people eat a lot of chicken. Um, my research shows 58 pounds per year of chicken per average American, and it's the most popular, meat in the United States. We eat a lot of chicken here, and that's been on the rise for, several decades. So monotony is the enemy. You don't want to get tired of the same old chicken. So there's, every country has its own chicken recipes, and these just differ in terms of, how you prepare it, and often, the sauce that goes with it, or the herbs or seasonings that go with it. So I encourage people to use recipes online. Anyone with a smartphone can access, a million chicken recipes out there, and so there's lots of good ones that are healthy. And I like a lot of dill on my chicken, and um, there's a million different ways to keep your chicken exciting.
And I know we have Douglas here in the live studio audience, and he posts a lot on Facebook that he uses an Instapot if he wants to unmute and share some of his secrets to Instapot cooking. It's great for people who are on a budget, and he's actually contributed to our book that you are an editor of, Dr. Dansinger, called Food for Thought. People can get that on Amazon for 20 bucks, just basically the printing cost. But Douglas has an entire section on how to cook on a budget in one pot, an Instapot, right, Douglas?
Yeah, I kind of right now I'm living off my Instapot because it's easy and it's good for me and it's good afterwards. But I use only white meat, breast meat, and vegetables, and put them all together. I push a button. I sit down, wait 40 minutes, and then 10 minutes later, I'm eating. And it works great, and it's good, healthy for you. And I've learned to add different seasoning to get different tastes of what I like. But it hits, for me, I think it hits everything I need to eat properly 99% of the time.
What do you think, Dr. Danziger? Sounds
Yeah,
good, huh?
I'm inspired. Yes. Yeah, the
I know
Instapot.
he uses a little bit, and what I like about the Instapot is that it infuses the flavors. And so when you think about how do you make let's say a vegetable stock that you could add to a chicken noodle soup to supplement the bone broth or the bone stock that they use in there, the vegetables actually infuse the water or the bone broth, and in turn it's infusing the chicken. It infiltrates that chicken and adds so much more flavor to that chicken and added moistness just as it's cooking in this broth.
Yes. So I love it. Thank you, Douglas, for sharing your experience on that. What I like to do with chicken breast is I often, as a shortcut, buy, my grocery store has 10 different types of pre-flavored raw chicken breasts. And there's one that I like called Peruvian flavored, but they also have barbecue and Italian and, a bunch of others. And so um, I put that in my toaster oven for 12 minutes, which is the perfect amount of time to get that cooked just enough but not too much. And that's the same amount of time it takes me to make a salad. I'll cut up the cucumbers and tomatoes and the peppers and the avocado, and get some of my marinated cabbage, and I'll make a 12-minute salad. And then that chicken breast is cooked and ready to go. I chop it up, add that to the salad, and I'm ready to eat less than 20 minutes after I started it. So that's my most common way of eating chicken.
I love that. And you can also use that toaster oven, or if you have an air fryer, to just add a thin layer. I use a panko crust, or I use a gluten-free breadcrumb, and I put it in an egg white egg wash, and I just put the chicken breast in there, put the dip it in seasoned. I always season the gluten-free breadcrumbs, or I prefer just a gluten-free panko, and I stick it in there, and you can get a little bit of that, tiny bit of that fried chicken esque texture. If you do that, if you need a little crunch to it, it's not as healthy as Dr. Dansinger says, as just doing something very basic without any sort of coating on it. But you could also use seasoning as a coating for it to make it a little bit crispy. I use, and I don't know what you think about this, Dr. Danziger, but one of my options is I use hemp seeds. And I mix some hemp seeds with some cayenne pepper, a little bit of Celtic salt, some regular pepper, lots and lots of garlic. And I actually mince the garlic, and then I mix it in there, and it actually makes the on top of sticking it in the egg wash, the minced garlic helps the hemp seeds actually stick, and it makes it just a little bit crispy.
Oh, I've never heard of that. So hemp seeds are healthy, so that sounds like a winning recipe. Are you
Mm.
interested in talking about any other birds?
Yes, Douglas has a question though, so let's get to his
Okay.
question.
So I was wondering that, I think she kind of answered that. So I have a George Foreman. Does it make a difference how you cook the chicken and how it keeps its flavor or its protein and all that stuff that comes with it? And on the egg part, I had a question also. You can buy those cartons of white, just the white. Is that what you're? Is that would that be better than buying the just the whole egg?
Great questions. Let me start with the egg question. Cartons of egg whites, I think, are terrific. And, it's pure egg white. And that's the healthiest part of the egg, in my opinion. It's pure protein, pretty much. And the fact that it comes in cartons, I think, is really convenient. And so you can use half a carton or part of a carton at a time. It's really good to make what I call egg bakes. So you can saute up some mushrooms or onions or spinach and add egg whites to that and make a quick, easy dish. Or I'll put those vegetables into a small casserole dish, add the egg whites in there, um, some low fat or fat free cheese, and bake that with some other seasonings. And when it cools, I cut it into squares and have that for breakfast for a few days. So those egg whites in the carton, I think are really good. Egg Beaters is probably the best known brand of that, and they just add a little bit of yellow food coloring in there, which is fine. So your other question about it, what's the best way to cook the chicken? So the George Foreman grill is terrific, right? You don't need any fat to add any unhealthy fat to the chicken. It 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 works very well. But you could also, use the air fryer or the oven or the skillet. All I ask is you stay away from putting a lot of batter or bread coating on there and putting it in the deep fryer. That's that negates all the health benefits. So that's a great question. Thank you.
Okay, I know we've run out. These 30 minutes go fast. Let's go through the other types of poultry, the duck, the game hen, the pheasant, all of the above. What's the healthiest? Anything that you would say knock off your list, do not even go for it. Choose something else.
So I don't think duck has much health benefit to it because it's so fatty. So duck has a lot of saturated fat in there. What I like about um, wild duck rather than farm raised duck is anytime you've got a farm, a wild bird, it's going to be better than something that's grown on a farm. So wild duck better than farm raised. Any true game bird, I think certainly going to have healthy meat, and so that's a winner. And then uh, so, and then there's turkey, right? A lot of us, some people only eat turkey once a year. Other people are big fans of the deli turkey slices because they're so convenient. The main drawback on those is the salt, but especially if you can get low salt versions, low sodium versions of the sliced deli turkey, I think that's a convenient middle ground. It's not as good as when you're making a turkey breast yourself. And so I have mixed feelings about the deli turkey slices, but it's a quick, convenient way to get pretty much pure protein.
Cornish hens?
Oh, Cornish hens. So I think these are usually farmed rather than wild.
Yeah.
And it everything I said about chickens would be true for Cornish hens. I just think of them as little chickens. And so when you eat a Cornish hen, you're almost certainly eating both the white and the dark meat. And so it's not as healthy as a chicken breast, but it's a fun treat if you're it's a fun treat. So
So if we're going to pit the turkey versus the chicken, which one would you say is your number one?
probably turkey breast, just slightly.
And then turkey to fish.
Pardon me, turkey and versus fish?
Uh-huh.
Always fish.
On that note, thank you so much, Dr. Dansinger. We really appreciate you. Make sure if you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and we have incredible content every single week. Dr. Dansinger, again, your website?
The website is diabetes reversal